Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another installment in our new figure showcase series, where we take a look at a recent release that I'm adding into my collection and do a review and a little posing session. Today we're going to be looking at the Grand Inquisitor from Hot Toys, based on his appearance in the Disney Plus Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries. And this is kind of a special figure or milestone for me because it marks the first Star Wars pickup I've had since The Force Awakens. As collections evolve and budget constraints rear their ugly head, there was a time when I was focusing exclusively on superhero releases, so Star Wars unfortunately had to kind of go away. But after watching Obi-Wan and seeing how great the characters looked, I had to finally jump back into the Star Wars line. And look, I know my opinion is probably in the minority here, so I just want to reiterate that it is just my opinion. But for me, while I really enjoyed The Mandalorian, I never truly felt like I needed figures from that line. They were beautiful releases and they were very tempting, but it was a line that I just felt, one, I'd never be able to fully complete to my satisfaction, and also I just wasn't as excited by it as everyone else. Now, Obi-Wan Kenobi, was it perfect? Of course not. But I loved the characters, and I liked seeing Ewan McGregor back, and then I loved Reva. I know that itself is not the overall opinion the fandom seemed to have, but I liked her a lot. And then you had the Grand Inquisitor. Again, haven't watched any of the animated Star Wars shows, so I don't have the connection to the character from those. But in Kenobi, I thought he was an imposing character. He didn't do much of anything, to be honest, other than play his role in Vader's plan. But there was just something imposing that I liked there. And of course, he has a very unique appearance. For Star Wars, I'm personally starting to get focused on picking up figures that include lightsabers. There will be some exceptions, of course, but that's going to be my primary focus. So with how much I like the show and that new Star Wars mindset in place, this seemed like a great figure to restart that Star Wars portion of my collection. So let's lay him out and see everything that Hot Toys has included here. And honestly, it's not much. You get a few spare hands, you get 2 different lightsaber handles with the new USB light up feature, which I'm really curious to see in action. You also get a variety of blade effect pieces as well as a communications unit with a holographic Vader. And finally, a simple rectangular display stand with what looks like an Imperial facility floor set up at the top. So overall, a more basic release, but as I haven't gotten Star Wars releases in a while, it looks fair enough to me. Plus, I don't know what else could have been included here, to be honest, other than maybe some kind of diorama piece. So let's take a closer look at those accessories, and we'll start with the hands. These are all molded plastic, meant to either hold some of the accessories, like the lightsaber or the comms device, and also to be splayed out in some kind of a force pose. I like the paint app here, making the gloves look like a nice leather fabric, albeit with a decent amount of texturing on it. So they're great, nothing crazy, but a decent accessory done right. And they are pliable to allow you to get the accessories in place. Next up, you do have the communications device, which is a nice throw-in, although not sure I'm going to want to use it, but who knows. Still, nice to have included in the package. So you get the base, which can stand by itself and is a nice round flat piece with the hole in the center to allow you to peg in the hologram version of Vader. Paint apps here look really decent, especially for such a small piece, and there is some nice detail work. So I can always appreciate when Hot Toys does that on a small element. Now the hologram is done in nice blue translucent plastic, and it looks like Vader and has nice ridges to give you the illusion of a hologram. So overall, nicely done. Next up, the lightsaber hilt. So you get 2 almost identical pieces here, one with a wire for the USB feature and the other without. So I'm going to do an entire section on the USB feature, but for now, let's just look at the hilts themselves, and they look great. I love the design, which if you've watched the show makes sense with the spinning function of the blades. It's a pretty cool feature, to be honest. It's a little something to differentiate it beyond the standard dual-bladed piece. Paint app looks great with the nice black and grays and touches of silver, and the unwired version also connects magnetically to the back of the figure. Always a nice touch, so I think overall these look really well done, and of course the corresponding blades. So I'll be honest, I like the idea that Hot Toys had with the dynamic motion blades, but having never gotten a figure with them, I always thought they would look strange. But in person and on the hilt, they actually look great, and posed up in the right way, I already had tons of ideas. They're both plastic, and that does have some nice gradient to the color, going from red to an almost white, and the straight blades are similarly a light red. The only note I have here is that it's a little interesting, the color choice. I think I would have probably thought to go with a more vibrant, brighter red, just to have them pop a little bit more, but so far looks good. And finally, you get this interesting assembly for the USB feature, which includes an additional cable that hooks up to the figure's back, nicely hidden by the cape to light up the chest plate. And then you also get this kind of small hub to receive the USB adapter from the lightsaber and from the figure, and allow for the connection of the USB wire. So let's talk about the feature right now. The pack actually has two methods for installation. The first has you actually clip this onto the figure's belt, which is nicely hidden away from view by the cape, while the other option is to clip the piece to the stand on the base. That's an interesting approach, maybe to allow for posability or to help hide the bulky USB cable a little bit better. I do think you'll have to do some work to hide the wires, since they are fairly obvious and apparent when you're posing, and the instructions do tell you to snake the lightsaber cable through the gauntlets to obscure it from sight a little bit. It's interesting, and look, is it a little annoying? Sure, but I do think it's a step in the right direction to move away from button cell batteries. As far as functionality, the LED on the chest is actually really nice and bright, and the lightsaber is okay. With the lights off, it really pops, but just with the lights on, it is a little hard to see the effect of the lightsaber on. So that's going to be a question in the long run on whether or not I'm actually going to be using that function. But still nice to have and nice to get away from the batteries. Alright, so let's talk sculpt. Grand Inquisitor has a very unique appearance that stood out on the show and stands out with the figure as well. But I will start by saying I think the sculpt definitely softened a little between the prototype and the final release. I don't think it's a huge negative, but I do think it's noticeable. As far as likeness, I think it's decent. Could they have gone with a slightly more expressive face? Sure, but I think it does look like him. Now, detail-wise, I love the eyes and the red streak down his cheeks. It looks amazing and definitely adds to the uniqueness of his character. Also love the markings on his forehead along with the skin folds running down, which look pretty cool. And of course you have the covers where his ears should go, so definitely a standout character design. And as far as the sculpt work in the paint app, it's pretty decent with some nice detail and texturing. If it isn't maybe as good as what was shown in the promo shots, that might be the only negative, but still pretty decent overall. Now the rest of the figure looks great. I love the appearance here with the grays and blacks creating a nice color gradient culminating in the white skin of his face. Overall, it's a simple design, basically just a great undersuit with the black armored elements, but it looks classy, as I would imagine the Grand Inquisitor should look. And of course the cape is a standout. It isn't wired, so just keep that in mind, but it drapes nicely on him, and I like the inner lining with the crimson elements matching his head markings, and adding just a bit of visual flair and color pop. Now the panels on his thighs and the shoulders are just thin plastic to create that armored look. They're attached to the figure via Velcro pads, so on the one hand, if they fall off, don't worry, thinking that you've broken anything, because you can easily place them back. But it's sometimes not conducive to the best of poses. Gauntlets and chest armor are nicely done too, and I do like the sleeves have some detail work with some folds, just giving an otherwise simple figure a more visually appealing look. Belt is also nice with the chrome accents. Now the boots, I like them. They're a nice soft leather-like material, and they're flexible enough that you can still pose and stand the figure up with a decent ankle pivot. My only concern, I think these are pleather, and as such I'm worried about longevity, since it's something that other collectors have complained about with their Star Wars figures when the boots actually start to rot out. But overall, appearance-wise, I really like the Grand Inquisitor. I do have some nitpicks, particularly with the shoulder armor and the shoulders in general. I did find it a little difficult to pose those, and I did find that the armored plates tended to restrict movement a little bit. With the Velcro, that was easy to remedy, but it was a little annoying. But the legs pose well and really don't have any restrictions at all. Again, my only concern is the material choice for the boots, so we'll have to see what happens with those. Now, we have to talk my favorite part of the figure, and that's the lightsaber. This thing looks gorgeous. I mean, the hilt itself is such an interesting design, obviously to also allow for the spinning blade, but it's such a great design. And honestly, I like the way it looks with both the straight static blade elements, but surprisingly, I really am liking the dynamic motion pieces. I think if the Inquisitor were just a little more posable, it would really allow for those to be displayed nicely. As it stands, I think I might opt to go with the static pieces with this guy, but I'm impressed with how the figure looks holding that lightsaber, and that's exactly why I decided to really move forward with collecting this type of Star Wars character for the most part. Now, the only minor issue with the cape, I like the fit and drape of it. It looks great, but the hood, it's not the best. I tried having it cover the Inquisitor's face, but it's just not sitting properly, and it does seem to bunch up a bit on the back, kind of conflicting a little bit when you have the hilt on the figure's back, which is actually, it's just annoying to try to fit that well. But overall, I don't know that I'm going to display the figure like that. And then there are great options, right? Even having the lightsaber on the hand with the comm device in the other. So there are a lot of possibilities here that really kind of let you kind of overlook that issue with the cape. But truly, for a first step back into Hot Toy Star Wars, I can't complain. Figure has presence to it by itself, and I just love the lightsaber. So really great package overall, and truly looking forward to getting Reva and some of the other figures from the line in hand. And I'm actually trying to back collect a little bit, which is weird for me, but I am keeping an eye out for deals on the Mando Season 2 Luke and trying to find a Maul, because I think Darth Maul next to the Grand Inquisitor would look amazing. So that was a quick look at the Grand Inquisitor by Hot Toys from the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries. Truly a great addition to the collection and a great figure overall. But I'm always curious to hear your thoughts, so let me know what you think about this one. And as always, thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.